This video is going to be discussing the God Roll weapon review for the combat crossbow Submersion, which is available via the Call to Arms event. I have done hours of testing on this, hours of research and testing, so I'd appreciate it if you like, hype, share, exfoliate, exterminate, extrapolate, and teleport. Do all of that for me. So this is going to be covering and summarizing this weapon archetype in full. This is going to be a mega breakdown video discussing everything that you need to know about this crossbow, including best rails to use, best bolts to use, best traits to use in column 1 and 2, best damage buffs to use on it, what is the god roll for it, what's the best mods to put in it versus temporal adapter versus temporal blast. What's good builds to use with it for Warlock, Titan and Hunter with some unique interactions. I'm giving you some unique interaction builds with this bow for all three classes. And also for champions. What's it like on champions? So we're going to discuss all of that, right? And there's a lot of variables with this crossbow. It's not just as simple as getting the traits and you're done. You're not done. There's rails to consider and they're all slightly different. The bolts are massively different. If you don't have the right bolt, you need to refarm the crossbow until you get the correct bolt. And that's what we're going to discuss in this video. It's going to be a mega breakdown. If you're struggling to watch the entire video, my advice to you is farm Call to Arms whilst listening to my video in the background. That is the best way to consume my video. Just because my videos are long doesn't mean that I haven't wasted any single minute with you. Every single minute in my videos are mostly valuable, apart from when I showcase my comedic talents to you. Other than that, everything's relevant and you need to know everything. I'm telling you about this because I want you to fully understand this crossbow because it's misunderstood. It's so misunderstood. So, first and foremost, stats. We've got impact, velocity, persistence, handling, reload, aim assistance, zoom, airborne effectiveness, and ammo generation. Let's take it from the top. Ammo generation is not to be considered as a stat for this weapon. None of the rails or anything are going to really impact ammo generation. However, there is a mod called Abundant Ammo, but you would never run Abundant Ammo on this crossbow. I don't see any situation in the game where you would use that. You would actually lose damage if you do that. So you would never do that. So forget about ammo generation. This weapon isn't about that. In actual fact, it's got infinite heavy ammo. This is the only weapon in the game that has infinite heavy ammo. So don't worry about ammo generation for anything. Don't worry about it at all. Yeah? Okay, airborne effectiveness, that's PvP stuff. Zoom, forget about it. Aim assistance, well, I'm on console, so I could do with a bit more aim assist, couldn't I? Don't worry about that either. Yeah? Reload speed is a stat to be considered. Handling, not. Handling is not to be considered at all for this weapon, and I know there's going to be a couple of eyebrows raised by me saying that, but the value of handling is not going to outweigh the other things I'm going to tell you in this video. It increases the ADS speed. Who cares, man? You're in PvE. Do you think ADS in a wizard is going to grant you favor? No way, man. It just won't make any difference at all for you in PvE. Don't worry about it. You don't need it. Persistence. That is the stat that you are going to have to consider. So far, persistence and reload are the most two important stats. Next is velocity. In my opinion, you don't need to really spec for velocity. However, it is impacted by one of the best traits on the gun, that being Impulse Amplifier, which increases the velocity stat. But however, this is a bow. If you hover your ADS or your cursor over a boss and shoot them, it's instant gratification of damage. There is no real travel time. There's no travel time to consider. It's not like a linear fusion rifle where it charges up and you've got to wait. It is instant damage. Instant. It's a click of a button away from critting a boss. The only thing that's holding the weapon back is the reload. So that's what you've got to consider that for. So velocity isn't needed for this. Persistence is. Now let me come to this next point. It states, increases the amount of time that bolts fired by this weapon will linger before expiring. Now people have read that and assumed that it increases damage over time, that being charged bolts. It may be used to do that in the game, but it does not do that now anymore. That does not happen anymore. Persistence will not increase any damage at all for you on this weapon. There's no secret effects that way. However, what it actually means is that when you fire a bolt at a boss, he's stuck with the bolt. Persistence stat will increase the longevity on how long that bolt is there to pick up, because it's got infinite heavy. So if you fire 10 bolts into a boss, by the time you fire 10 bolts, if you rock a 60 persistence stat, you'll be able to pick all 10 bolts back up. However, coming on to this, if you rock a... that's wrong. If you rock a low persistence stat, you will lose ammo. If you fire 10 bolts back to back, and you then go for your ammo, you're going to lose bolts, because there's a time on it. So persistence does not affect damage in any sense. It only increases the amount of time you can pick up an arrow off a boss or a target. That is all it does. But that is a very important consideration for when actually using this weapon in real day situations. So I value that much more than everything else on this weapon stat wise, apart from reload. That's what I'm going to come on to next. So reload is to be considered because the weapon is sluggish, yes. However, it's got the perk or the origin trait, Contend and Cascade. This stacks up to 14 times. Once you get it to 14 stacks, to be honest with you, you're pretty good on the reload, right? It's as good as it's going to feel for you. You're getting handling and all this sort of stuff, right? That's why I just think you don't need to spec for handling or reload, really, because you've got Contend and Cascade. And this will proc from any ability damage or weapon damage other than this weapon. It will proc from this weapon. It'll also proc from other things. You'll also get an elemental explosion against adds. But the point of it is, this saves the day for the weapon, so you don't need to spec for it. You need to spec for persistence. It needs to be spec for, and I'm going to prove it to you that you need to spec for it. I will prove it to you in the run, in the tests. Yeah? So I hope you understand that. And next thing that's very important, if you have Submersion at tier 6, it does more damage. Watch. Power slot weapon damage, 12%. Boom. Tier 5. Power slot weapon damage, 10%. Tier 6 weapons are doing 2% more damage than their counterparts. Why has nobody told us this? Why is it me that has to tell you it? Why is nobody testing stuff in the game anymore? And I'm talking about D2 players. Why has nobody said? Why does it take me to figure it out for you? Yeah? Tier 6 weapons, you should keep them. They're bugged, but they're doing more damage. So I can't use this in a test because they're doing more damage. Although it's not the right role. But you see what I'm saying? Like I said, we'll also discuss the temporal mods as well, right? However, these weapons are going to retire at the end of Season 27. But I'll discuss that because Temporal Blast used to be broken with Submersion. Yes, it's not broken with it anymore. However, there is still a secret interaction with Submersion and Temporal Blast if you have a correct bolt. So there's much more to it than just that. So we will cover all of that in the video. So that's my introduction part. And we'll now come on to... I'll quickly cover this bit. So what is the best reload rail to run? Because your rails will improve massively on all your stats. The best rail that's possible for reload is called Quick Load Rail. Quick Reload Rail. Which is none of these on this rail right now, what you've got. So the best two rails are Empowered Rail or Quick Load Rail. Quick Load Rail offers a lot of reload speed, and the Empowered Rail is the best one for persistence. And as I've just explained to you, you want to spec for persistence, not reload, because of the bow linger effect, right? Picking up your ammo. The ammo is more important than the reload, and I'll prove it to you that it is because of other contributing factors. So I've covered rails. Basically, after everything and all considerations, there's only two rails you actually want, Empowered or Quick Load. And I think Empowered's better anyways. Just my opinion. It really is. So, yeah, we'll come over to the bolts and I'll do my tests and the traits and all of that and the damages in the shooting hall. And all tests will be done with a 135 weapon stat. This will never be altered. The only time I will alter this is when I show you unique builds at the end for Titan, Warlock and Hunter, which with some very fantastic interactions with the bow for different builds for Hunter, Warlock and Titan, like I said. Something special for Titans, there's something special for Hunters, something special for Warlocks with this bow in mind. There really is. So that's my introduction part. Oh, and just to finally iterate, we only use crossbow, we only used a barrier bow on the artifacts, nothing else. And for the shooting hall, it needs to be standardized tests. In order to do that, we run the 10 power one, not ultimate. If we run ultimate, my crossbow powers, all the power levels are different. To make sure that there's no skew with numbers, we need normal. So I use normal for that. So that's the introduction to this part. Okay, so for the first initial tests, we are discovering which is the best bolt. I'm going to show you the damage of all of the bolts. There are 5 different styles of bolts. We're going to start with serrated bolts. You do damage when you pick up a bolt off a living target. 1716 damage. We retrieve 326. 2042. That right? That's the benchmark so far. Explosive bolts. How does that weigh up to serrated? 773 plus 944. Terrible. Explosive bolts is terrible. It's one of the worst bolts. Do not use it. Yeah, then we go to spring auger bolts. This releases a impulse shortly after damage. Let's see what that is. 1716 plus a little detonation. Terrible. Spring auger bolts is terrible. Do not use that one. Now we come on to the final 2 bolts that are good. Charge bolts or heavy bolts. These bolts should always be used over the other ones. Let me show you charge bolts. Yeah? So let's see that damage. Remember, serrated bolts are in 2042, but that requires you to keep grabbing the bolt. That's not going to be realistic on damage rotations. It's just not realistic. Look at that. 2096. That's very good damage. And DOT has unique effects with other things. Now I try heavy bolts. Heavy bolt has the unique interaction with chill clip. I'll show you that in a bit. But let's just see what the damage actually is. These are no damage bonuses. None of these clips are. Right now, it's just how much damage. 1818. 1888. That's very respectable damage. That's the most damage you will get DPS-wise is heavy bolts. But, you know, the DOT is very valuable, like I've mentioned. So now we're showing you persistence and how the persistence stat has no interaction with charge bolts DOT at all. Some people are under the impression the higher the persistence, the longer your DOT lasts. That is false. I'm going to prove it to you that is false. Watch. This is with a high persistence stat of 61. Yeah? 2096 is the damage. Let's do the same shot with lower persistence to prove it to you that persistence has no interaction at all right now in the game with DOT. Yeah, so 2096, point of reference. Let's show the proof. Game will tell you it. There we go. Is the stacking longer? Is it the same duration? Is it more? It's not. It's 2096. So persistence has nothing to do with more damage. It's just that the bolt is there longer for you to have a chance of recovering that. Now we're going to show you that mechanic of the bolt lasting longer on a target. This is high persistence stat, yeah? And we're going to shoot the boss and we're just going to sit and wait for the bolt to depreciate. Remember, persistence is very important because by the time you fire 10 bolts, being able to pick up that bolt, the next 10 set, is very important. You're going to add almost another 10 seconds if you double your persistence stat. You can time it yourself. It's almost 40 seconds this bolt lasts. It's not quite 40 seconds. It's just under 40 seconds, like 38 seconds or something. So 38 seconds with a high persistence stat, the bolt will remain there. That's huge. It's not just for boss damage, it's champ damage, adds, and all these sort of things you would use it on, right? It's not just about boss damage anymore, this. It's about, well, if the bolt lasts longer, that's better for ammo. There we go. Now I run a low persistence stat and you will see the timer is less. It's actually around 30 seconds or less. So we are losing 10 seconds of bolt charge lingering effect, not staying active as much. Do you see now why persistence is so damn important? Because in active combat, it's alright we're sitting in the shooting hall now, but in active combat, 10 seconds is very valuable to combat and gameplay. Extremely valuable. So it lasts less of a time if you run a low persistence stat. As you can see there from that clip. Okay, next up is column 1 traits, the best traits. There's 2 really good ones. There's one that's okay called Bolt Scavenger, but I don't value it that much. It's just showing you what it looks like. So Bolt Scavenger, if you've got it, this is what it looks like. Gives you that reload buff. There you go, 3-second timer. That's no big deal. Look at the reload. I know we haven't got content and cascade yet, but yeah, you can see that. So what? Big what? Right? It just doesn't matter all that much. But Bolt Scavenger's there. Now we whip on Impulse Amplifier, which I believe to probably be the best trait between that and auto and holster. So you can see, look, we're getting the reload buff, yeah, and impulse amplifier adding velocity as well. It's very nice. He's auto and holster, which is what most people are going to be going for sure. Yes, so I'm just showing you that. And you compare it with weapons like New Exotic Mint or regular Mint, Witherhoard, stuff like that. Showing you the auto and holster working on the crossbow. That's all this is. Just to show you column 1 traits, what's good. And those 2 traits, impulse and auto and holster, are the best ones. Okay, next test is very important. This is showing you charge bolt interaction with temporal blast. I have temporal blast now on the combat bow. Watch this. Watch this gameplay very acutely. I shoot the boss. Temporal blast ready. Yeah, we would do. Let's do it now and not shoot the boss again. Watch DOT. DOT gives me temporal blast. Watch. There you go. Boom. Do you see the interaction? DOT is working with temporal blast. You can get it every single shot. On a DPS rotation, obviously that doesn't make sense, but on active combat it does. I'm going to show you it now with a different bolt charge, heavy bolts. It's not giving me temporal blast. Watch. There's no interaction there. Do you see? Like exactly the same. Okay, so now we've established heavy bolts and DOT bolts, charge bolts are the best 2 configuration. What's the difference between the 2? Let's go impulse amplifier, chill clip, and heavy bolts. Because heavy bolts has an interaction with chill clip to destruct the frozen target, giving you damage. Right, so we're using temporal blast as well. Let's see what the damage is over the course of 10 shots. Because the bow has 10 shots. Yeah, you're going to get those not freeze ignitions, but freeze shatters every now and then in accordance with temporal blast as well. Don't worry, there'll be a temporal blast comparison with temporal adapter later on. So let's see the damage. Let's see what it is. Impulse amplifier, chill clip, heavy bolts. What's the damage? 24,525. We'll give context to that number in a bit. Let's see what charge bolts does. I prefer charge bolts. They are less damage overall, but they've got some unique effects with builds and on champions. But let's just see let's see the gap between heavy bolts and charge bolts to see, is the gap of heavy bolts really that worth it? Because we know it's higher damage, but how much more? Is it loads more or is it just micros? Let's see. So this is DOT, chill clip, impulse amplifier. Let's see what the damage is. Remember, we got 24.5k just before. Yeah, 10 shots, exact same test. Let's see, 23. Yeah, rising to 24. Less DPS, but very similar damage. So do you see now the gap between heavy bolts and charge bolts is extremely similar. Okay, so you've just seen around about 24,000 we're hitting with the crossbow with a chill clip roll. Let's compare that to 10 shots of Sleeper Simulant. Because I believe that the crossbow is very similar to Sleeper in its use. Right? So let's just see. 10 shots of Sleeper. What damage does it do? Does it exceed 24,000 on 10 shots? On 10 shots. 10 shots? 22,000. The bow is doing more damage on a 10 shot basis. Less DPS. Sleeper does more DPS. But the crossbow has infinite heavy ammo and can match Sleeper on a 10 shot basis for damage. Not for DPS, but for damage. Now let's do Boom Slang. 10 shots of Boom Slang. It's an Edge of Fate linear. Hits harder than other linears because of the bonus. Let's see how the linear compares to the crossbow. And the crossbow absolutely whoops the linear. Right, we're doing our 10 shots. We've just about hit every crit, just about. We've missed one, I think. 10 shots, 14k. Nowhere near the crossbow, look. So with the crossbow, we can loop this damage, you got to bear in mind. So we can loop that 24,000 damage. Yeah? So, like with a weapon like Sleeper Simulant, if you use 10 shots, you've lost 10 shots. With his crossbow, being able to match Sleeper and actually better it at times when we introduce better traits for damage, not for DPS. Sleeper will still out DPS this weapon. That's not the point though. But look what we can do. 10 shots used, 10 shots gained back. 24,000, boom, we can keep going. This is a combatant Grandmaster weapon. It's a combatant Grandmaster weapon. That's exactly what this weapon is. Kind of like what New Land Beyond is. Yeah? But just look at that utility of that. We can just keep going and going and going. That's the point. Okay, so now we discuss traits. The highest damage trait on the crossbow is Aggregate Charge. So we're going to show you Heavy Bolts, Impulse Amplifier, and Aggregate Charge, which is technically the highest damage you can do, right, on the crossbow. This is the highest. Okay, so you do need to lock in an aggregate charge on this bow. It does crazy damage, right? So we can get aggregate charge with elemental debuffs. I've got Stasis Turret, Helion, Arcane Needle, aggregate charge ×2 there. I believe it gets to ×3. And we're just going to, there we go, ×3. So we're hitting like a truck. We're hitting for 3k per crit. I know it's got Radiant, and I know it's a little bit different to Sleeper, but that's hitting harder than a base Sleeper. Do you understand the amount of damage that aggregate charge crossbow can do? That's incredible, and we can pick that ammo and go again. Aggregate charge is nasty on this crossbow. You need aggregate charge for damage. Look at the damage, it's incredible, dude. Over 10 shots. That is nuts. Okay, so next up is High Ground, which is a 25% damage bonus. It's too niche, though. It's too niche, because you need to be higher than the boss for it to proc. If there's any time where Bungie designs a boss where the Guardian is higher than the boss for some reason, High Ground will be a nice option, because it's 25% damage bonus for free. This isn't the God Roll for High Ground, by the way, and I'm not saying that you really do need it, because Chill Clip will basically match it. Aggregate Charge does better than it, because it's 33% damage bonus. I'm just showing you the High Ground damage, and it's too niche. I don't recommend it. I'm just here to show you that it does work if you're higher than a boss, but that is here or there. It never happens. It barely happens in the game, that. Okay, so here is the damage comparison between Temporal Blast and Temporal Adapter. Do you go Reloader or Temporal Blast? And this portion is going to prove to you that you use Temporal Blast. Okay, so I'm going Chill Clip, Heavy Bolts, Impulse Amplifier with Temporal Blast. We're not doing DOT. I'm not going to be go too unfair with it. By the way, if you go DOT, you can get a Temporal Blast every single shot if you wait for it. But that's not for DPS, of course. Let's just do 10 shots with Temporal Blast. And again, let's just reiterate what it is. It's around about 24k. We already know this. But I'm going to show you why you are throwing by using Temporal Adapter. And I've seen chatter about people using Temporal Adapter on this thing. And it's wrong on many levels. You've got Content and Cascade, which I've not got proc right now, but chances are you've got it procced, because it procs very quickly off elemental kills, ability kills. So Temporal Adapter is proccing. Look, see the reload? Yeah, nothing too special. Who cares? Plus 20 reload. It's plus 20 reload. And you're not having Temporal Blast proc. Even if Temporal Blast only procs 3 times over the course of a 10 shot basis, that's still 3 Temporal Blast less than what you would have. Look, 21k. There you go. The numbers don't lie, lads. Do not use Temporal Adapter with this thing. Temporal Blast is the way. Okay, so champions. It is Barrier Bow. Just watch this with DOT. Charge Bolts, Chill Clip, Impulse Amplifier. Watch what we do to this Barrier champion. Watch his ultimate disrespect. Boom. DOT. Emote. Shield breaks from damage over time. Look, that there cements to me why Charge Bolts is the best bolt on this, even though it's technically not the most damage. And Charge Bolts... Heavy Bolts is, but Charge Bolts has more utility. So you go Charge Bolts for this reason. And it interacts with a lot of different builds as well, which we're going to come on to. So we're going to spawn in an Overload. So it kills both barriers and overloads this bow right now. That is subject to change, because Renegades is going to introduce new mods. So this is subject to change. But if you have Chill Clip on the bow, it will always stun overloads. It will always stun overloads, but it won't always stun barriers. That's only unique to right now. But I just figured I would show it. DOT also helps out against the overloads, as you can see there as well. Okay, so unique build pairings. Take, for example, Necrotic Grip on the Warlock. You can add 2 styles of damage over time to a boss with this loadout. I'm going to go Aggregate Charge, yeah? And we're going to show you DOT double damage over time. This is crazy. So you can make your bow more poison style. There is no interaction between Necrotic Grip and the bow, but you can have the Chill Clip, the Temporal Blast, the Aggregate Charge, and 2 styles of damage over tile at one time in the separate instances of DOT. I just think it's very unique. You can also do this with Fellwinter. Aggregate Charge, it's like a truck on this crossbow. You need Aggregate Charge. It's not just Chill Clip you need. You definitely need Aggregate Charge. And this footage is showing it. So Warlock mains, try out different things like that. Hunters, this is my Robin Hood build. I steal from the rich to flex on the poor. Look at this, right? With the slam, with the devil dive build, with speed loader slacks, damage over time, stacked with speed loader slacks, charge bolts. You need charge bolts with auto and holster and Chill Clip. It's different. Now look at this unique pairing. Exotic Mint. I used this combo to solo the Ghost of the Deep, if you saw it. Yeah, on the final boss. So watch what you do here. Yeah, you do your Exotic Mint, then you dive, then you do the DOT bow. Look at my class ability. It's coming back. This is why it's Robin Hood. Look, and because of auto, and also you can shoot twice. Because it's already loaded, you can dive again and then shoot again. Do you see this? This is a very good unique pairing. Good for dungeon solos and such. It's a good pairing with Exotic Mint. Because it's got auto and holster. It's nice. And it's matching almost sleeper simulant for a single shot basis. So do you understand now why this is so powerful? Very good on this build. I love it on this build. So for Hunter mains, you try out this. With auto and holster chill, charge bolt, DOT. Because it has that unique effect with speed loader slacks. Titan, I've got something for you as well. Collective action on the crossbow is good because it's a 20% damage bonus for free with Tectonic Harvest. You are going to keep getting your crossbow damage bonus if you do Stasis melee slide. Watch this. Slide on a boss, shatter crystal, collective action. That is a 20% damage bonus for free. Do you understand how important this is? For collective action users, this is good, but only for this. It's not really good for other things. The only use I see for collective action is for the Stasis Titan. So, Stasis Titans should have a collective action crossbow. Do you see how important that is? Very powerful, very nice. So to summarise, the god roll for Submersion is simply put, on the first column you want an option for auto and holster and impulse amplifier, the best two traits in column 1. And in column 2, if you can get chill clip, aggregate charge and collective action, that is brilliant. Collective action is a free 20% damage bonus when you're on a Stasis Titan for Stasis Shard pickup, which is very nice, but only for that build. Aggregate Charge is the highest damage trait you can get on Submersion, so you should lock in an Aggregate Charge roll for this, especially with certain builds, especially on like prismatic style builds, Warlock and such, like I showcased earlier on. And Chill Clip being the overall utility trait, probably best overall trait, and does competitive damage to other damage bonuses, right? And especially with the unique effect with Charge Bolts, you know, just being very nice with the Chill Clip and the Charge Bolts interacting with Temporal Blast. You can technically get Temporal Blast every single shot, but you wouldn't play exactly like that, but I'm just explaining that. Temporal Blast, though, would be still the overwhelmingly best choice on this, better than Temporal Adapter. We have proved that in the video. So, best bolts, Charge Bolt, Heavy Bolt, spec for Persistence or Reload, but my opinion, Persistence being priority because you've got Reload on the Origin trait. That is the God Roll for Submersion, high in depth. Think of this weapon more as Sleeper Simulant, right? Because it's matching similar damage to Sleeper in terms of on a shot-by-shot basis, right? And it's infinite heavy. This is in my opinion, this crossbow is used for Grandmaster content. When we get the Grandmaster playlist back, I suspect Submersion to be one of the best weapons for Grandmasters, right? Because you can just get your ammo back. It's incredibly useful for that. So that's the God Roll weapon review for Submersion. Hope you enjoy. Thank you.